Good evening, everyone, from the Florida Panhandle, which tonight is reeling from the strongest storm to hit this area in recorded history. With some storms, it's the wind that's the biggest fear. With others, it's the water. And with this monster, it is both. Hurricane Michael ravaging the coast with 155-mile-an-hour winds, ripping homes and businesses to shreds, and storm surge leaving cities underwater. The governor is saying he is scared to death of people who didn't heed the warnings. I can tell you personally, it was at moments a frightening experience here today. The power of this storm like we have rarely seen. And tonight, it's showing few signs of losing steam as it barrels its way inland. And we'll take you through every moment with all our correspondents, starting with NBC's Gabe Gutierrez down the coast in Apalachicola.
Tonight, Hurricane Michael is on the move. After slamming into the Florida Panhandle, the most powerful storm on record to make landfall here. In Mexico Beach, Florida, destruction. Homes submerged and in pieces, streets like rivers. Nearby Panama City Beach, a house ripped apart by the hurricane-force winds, windows shattered, buildings collapsed, and boats overturned.
Communities are going to see unimaginable devastation.
Michael rapidly intensified overnight into a monster Category 4 hurricane, eventually reaching sustained winds of 155 miles per hour.
This used to be my back porch.
The wind and water so powerful they trapped a storm chaser. Alabama and Georgia also under states of emergency, the ominous eye clearly visible from the space station. In Apalachicola, Florida, the rain began overnight as Michael's outer bands battered the Gulf Coast. By dawn, the wind and the rain picked up and the water started to rise, forcing us to move to higher ground. A massive storm surge flooded part of this historic downtown. Hey, we're seeing the raw power of Hurricane Michael. Just within the past hour or so, we have seen the winds intensify significantly. As you can see behind me, parts of this town are completely underwater.
How would you describe this? It's catastrophic. Yeah. I mean, we were looking at some heavier, some stronger winds, which we didn't get, but still, it was enough to do the damage like you see right here. This is replicated across the county. And plus some of the roads that are underwater now, we don't know what kind of damage we're going to have when the water recedes.
Hundreds of thousands of people in Florida ordered to evacuate.
We all knew this time was coming. The storm is upon us. There is nothing else to be gained by leaving where you are. You need to shelter in place.
Beverly Giddens has lived here 35 years.
I've never been in one like this. I was here doing tennis, and that was scary enough, but this was pretty awesome.
She and so many others along the Gulf Coast now just beginning to assess Michael's fury. Gabe Gutierrez, NBC News, Apalachicola, Florida.
This is Kerry Sanders. A powerful hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico, tonight extremely dangerous, crashing onto the coastline, and in some cases inland.
It is getting insane here.
An unprecedented storm surge zone, more than 500 miles from Anna Maria Island up and around to Pensacola Beach.
It's 11:03 in the morning, and the distance from the sand dunes to the Gulf of Mexico is about 50 feet. Already this beach has been cut in half. It's 12:20 p.m. The full force of the hurricane is yet to hit, and already the distance between the Gulf of Mexico and the sand dunes has been reduced to next to nothing. The storm surge is coming.
Storm surges driven by wind. As I was reporting today during Hurricane Michael's strongest winds, my safety helmet was ripped off my head. Off balance, I was steadied by the Weather Channel's Jim Cantori. The storm surge threat is not over. In some places, it may exceed 20 feet. And the power of those crashing waves could erode 75% of the Panhandle's sandy beaches, adding to the problems the unique geography here. The corner of Florida's Gulf Coast is shaped like a catcher's mitt. The area is subject to higher storm surges because of this shallow topography that extends more than 50 miles off the coast. That lack of depth means the water has nowhere to go but inland.
In some areas, that storm surge threat is now over, but there could still be problems because an unusually high tide is expected late tonight. Lester?
All right, Kerry Sanders. And knowing that we were no match for this storm, my crew and I rode this one out in our hotel. But even that proved dicey when the powerful eye wall blew through, turning our view of the storm into a risk simply not worth taking. Within minutes, conditions deteriorated right outside my window. The power is now out. We were outside for a little bit. We're forced inside. Hurricane Michael proving to be everything it was advertised to be. Joining my colleagues in another room with a balcony, we went live on air, an unobstructed and frightening view of Michael at its most ferocious. As I have my hand on this window, I can feel it bowing. 150-mile-per-hour winds howling like jet engines. It's like an airplane taking off. Have you ever stood near the end of a runway? Fellow hotel guests hunkering down inside hallways. As conditions worsen, and with safety the utmost priority, we barricaded ourselves in a room. We put this mattress in front of the window. You know, we want to be on the air, but we've got to take care of each other, and so we're going to do that. So know that we're safe, but we're going to have to sign off. Finally, what seemed to be the worst of the storm passing us. The visibility much better now, so I think we're, as the radar indicates, we seem to be on the backside of this thing. Surveying from our covered overlook, we could see damage everywhere. And one floor above, in my producer's room, the hotel window shattered. This came up very quickly. This morning I was even questioning, are we sure we're in the right place? Within a few hours, it was incredible. Thankfully, my colleague was not in that room when the glass blew out, but rather with the rest of us barricaded behind that mattress. We want to go now to NBC's Mariana Atencio. She's down the coast at Port St. Joe, where the storm has knocked out our team's broadcast communications. Mariana, what can you tell us from there?
Lester, we are on the road here. I'm standing 10 minutes from Mexico Beach. And right now, Joe, virtually an island. It looks like a massive tornado has churches with the roofs going off, motels, the water completely blown out, destroyed. And then where we go, people desperate, asking us.
All right, obviously having trouble with Mariana's communications there. All the phone service certainly being disrupted by this, but we are joined on another line now by Linda Albrecht. She's a councilwoman for Mexico Beach. The community hit hard when Hurricane Michael came ashore. We saw some of the damage there. Can you tell us if you've had any casualties, any injuries?
This I do not know. I can just tell you that much of the town is underwater. 4 or 5 blocks away from the Gulf of Mexico, houses are underwater. But I do not know anything about the casualties. The police chief was going around this afternoon, early evening, to check on anybody who had decided not to leave. And he was just checking it with a rescue, hopefully that he would find some people that he could rescue.
All right. Well, Linda, thank you for talking to us. Appreciate it, and best of luck there. As the storm crashes its way inland, they're bracing for impact in Florida's capital city and a big college town. Matt Bradley has made his way to Tallahassee for us. Matt, what's the latest from there?
Lester, this is one of the most powerful storms this city has ever seen, and it's a double threat tonight. Not just from hurricane-force winds, but from the threat of tornadoes, and that's going to last till tomorrow morning. But the real problem here is the trees. They're the pride and joy of Tallahassee. They cover about 50% of the city, and as you can see, they're going down all over the place. And this is emblematic of what's going on here in Florida's capital. Just across the street from this huge downed tree is yet another downed tree. They're causing extensive damage, and they're turning lights out throughout the city. But we haven't even seen the worst of the winds yet here, Lester, so it's going to be a dangerous night ahead.
Matt Bradley, thank you. And the question now as the storm rages, is the federal response ready to move in? Peter Alexander is at the White House monitoring developments from there. Peter, what are you hearing?
Hey, Lester, good evening. The president was briefed in the Oval Office this afternoon by his Secretary of Homeland Security and the head of FEMA. President Trump says the White House has been in constant contact with state and local officials, saying plans are in place to send resources, food and water. But tonight, rather than monitor the disaster response from here, the president is in Erie, Pennsylvania for a private fundraiser, followed by a campaign rally. Asked if that was appropriate tonight, the president said he didn't want to disappoint his supporters who've been waiting in line. He says he will visit the region, the hurricane zone, early next week. Lester?
All right, Peter, thank you. As the winds die down here in Panama City, it is going to be a dangerous night ahead for millions across the southeast as the storm continues north. Al Roker joins us with the latest track of Michael.
Across Georgia, it continues on into South Carolina and then makes its way out into the Atlantic around Norfolk. It's the first Category 4 landfall in the Florida Panhandle. It's the strongest October hurricane on record in the United States and the strongest U.S. landfall since 1992 in Andrew. You can see we've got tropical force winds still through tomorrow, making their way all the way up into the Carolinas. We've also got storm surge and anywhere from 5 to 7 inches of rain moving from the Gulf all the way into the parts of the mid-Atlantic states. Lester?
All right, Al, thank you. We're all stunned at how quickly this thing blew through here. As Michael blasts the coast, we're seeing two disasters collide here in Florida. For months, the coastline has been plagued with a red tide. It's been making life miserable for residents. The question that many are asking now is, how will Michael's fury impact this toxic invasion?